What is up, everybody? It's Rob coming at you with the Tuesday nightly watch list. All right, guys. Once again, we made a killing trade today, up over 150%. We are banking recently every single day. We are killing it in the market. But first, before we get into the news, let's go over the market recap. I'm actually live again while the market's open. We have 15 minutes until the close. And after the bell, we're actually going to have AMD earnings, which is going to be huge because, as we all know, right, we are in the AI bubble. And at the same time, right, we also have Beyond earnings, which I have on the upper right here because recently, right, you did see this crazy meme stock rally where the stock went from 50 cents all the way up to almost $8. So I do want to see how this plays out with the earnings. Should be interesting to watch, but most importantly, it's going to be AMD, right, with this earnings. So, right, if we look at the market, okay, look, S&P 500 down 1%, NASDAQ almost 2%, and the Dow about 0.5%, small caps 1.5%. So futures opened up, right, this morning, we were looking at down 1%. Now, there wasn't really much news this morning to really explain this move down besides, right, Palantir had earnings, right? We were live. Go look at the last watch list to see how those earnings played out. Palantir was down about 8% at the open, so there was some concerns about AI stock valuations and AI capex. So, and you kind of throw in that with earnings season and just some profit taken. Well, here you are. We opened up down 1%, which has actually been one of the bigger moves down at open recently. So we did get a move down today, 1%. So that is what happened pre-market. So, right, the US government is actually in one of its longest shutdowns. Today enters, right, the 35th day, consecutive day of the government shutdown. So, right, what that means is it ties it for the longest ever recorded, right? So tomorrow will be the second or the first longest ever government shutdown. And then, what today had was really interesting. So Yum, right? The parent company of Pizza Hut, they initiated a strategic review for Pizza Hut, and actually we got some crazy move on that name. Because like I've been telling you guys, right, for the past month, and if you stay locked in on the watch list, right, Pizza's actually been a buyout candidate. So I'm going to pull up their chart for you, and you'll see here that, look, just today the stock moved down from $52 all the way to $38. We got this news in the first minute. It had a crazy move. But before I get in that headline, right, I wanted to show you recently. Look, so we can go back to October 10th, right? And then you look here, stock went from 41 to 55. Now, there's been a lot of rumors of a buyout for Papa John's. So that's why you've been seeing a lot of moves in the stock, okay? So, you know, today we did get that headline, right? Where Yum initiated a strategic review for Pizza Hut. So you saw the name run up a little bit. But then today, right, got absolutely smoked because the company, Apollo Global, that initiated its buyout offer for $64 a share, right, has withdrawn its offer to take Papa John's private. Okay, now they said this because they thought, okay, well, we've been seeing, a lot of consumer spending weakness. So they thought, well, we're not going to want to do this buyout with the consumers weak, right? Look at Chipotle earnings that just happened, right? A bunch of different food stocks are all getting killed down on the year. And look at consumer spending, right? The consumer's getting hit pretty hard because prices are going up. So Apollo pulled out their bid. Now, like I've been telling you guys, right? Whenever you get buyout offers, the stock never goes to the actual share price because there's always risk, okay, that the deal might not go through. Now, a lot of times, when you get buyout offers, it's pretty serious. So the deal does eventually go through. But as you can see here, right, with this huge move today, this is the exact risk that you can face, right, by buying a stock and waiting, right, to get the remaining spread, okay, for the buyout offer, is that you can get absolutely smoked on moves down like this. So that's been what's been going on with pizza. So keep your eyes on that, right, for any more news that circulates around pizza. So you're going to see some volatility there. Okay, now last night, same thing, right? A lot of movement has been happening with these food stocks because look at Denny's, okay? You actually had the move, right, from $3.88 all the way up to $6 because Denny's, okay, overnight got a buyout offer, okay? Now they're being taken private for $620 million deal. The shareholders are going to get $6.25 share cash. And right, they were supposed to have their earnings call yesterday, but it actually got canceled because this buyout offer came in and they accepted it. So they ended up over 46%, okay, which is awesome because look, you could have pulled this chart out and you would see, like, look, distressed stock, okay. I mean, this was down to $3, okay, during that tariff sell-off in the beginning of the year with Trump, and then look at it now, $6. That's what I always tell you guys for the long term. Look at stocks at multi-year lows, okay, and that's where we always get our entries. And look, Denny's would have been one of those great ones because now you could have bought it for the cheap and buyout offer. Also, look, we are live. So look at this move down on the spot. You are seeing big volume coming into the close. You are getting a little bit of a sell-off, right? Like I was telling you, of AMD earnings. So the market, it's going to be a big one. So the market's definitely pricing that in. And then I have for you here Starbucks. I do have news. This has been another name that has been beaten up because, right, of this consumer weakness. I mean, look at this chart I'm pulling out for you, right? 1 year, okay, we're at lows. I can pull it out for you even more. 3-year chart, okay? Look at this. I mean, it's been getting absolutely beat up. Now, the news that I wanted to share with you, right, for Starbucks was that this was the headline, right? Starbucks has given up majority control of its China retail operations. So they teamed up with another company, and that company is going to take a 60% stake, okay, in their China businesses. So this deal will value Starbucks' China's retail business at a roughly $4 billion cash deal. So both of these companies are looking to do this deal. And, right, this is actually going to help, possibly drive China's Starbucks expansion because they have been seeing some contraction there. So they're saying, okay, well, we can still, keep 40% of the business, but let's sell 60 and let's let these guys, help us out. So that is the news you have on Starbucks, and the stock is down 2% on that news. Well, because, Starbucks is priced for growth, and yes, they will be getting $4 billion, but at the same time, right, they are essentially selling future cash flow, right, and all those operations for their company. So stock is down 2% on that, but that's the news for Starbucks. Also, this could possibly explain, right, the move down today about at 1%, right? But don't take it too seriously, okay? But drum roll here. Michael Burry, okay? As we all know, Michael Burry from The Big Short, okay? He has actually went short, or, he has invested against Palantir, okay, and NVDA. So he actually took, right, and you can see this in his latest 13F file, and all of these managers that manage over a certain dollar amount have to disclose, their, investments and transactions over time. And he runs this company called Scion Capital. And they just recently bought put options on NVIDIA, up to about 1 million shares, okay, and 5 million Palantir shares. So as you can see here, right, look, these stocks have just absolutely ripped, and it's all because of the AI. So, he is kind of saying this is, overextended, and, the growth rates that the companies are getting don't actually reflect, the current share price and their future cash flows. So he's betting against these companies. Now, you can't take him too seriously because he did previously say, like in 2023, to sell everything, and the market doubled since then practically. So that's why a lot of people clown on this guy. But, as we know, it's Michael Burry. He's a big name in the market. So when he makes moves, some people listen. So there you go. And then I also have for you here, right, Kimberly-Clark closes down 15%. Its worst drop since October of 1987. So for those that don't know, right, Kimberly-Clark is a, essentially we can call it a paper company, right? So a staples company. Now, the brands that they make, which I'm going to pull up for you here, I made a post last night on my X, which you guys should check out. But, I'm sharing this with you guys because maybe this could be added to one of our long-term candidates, right? And we do have some other names we're really focusing on: Chipotle, Constellation Brands, and Novo Nordisk. But last night I made a post showing that, Kenvue, right, the makers of Tylenol and some, healthcare pharmaceutical drugs, right, was going to merge with KMB. So this is actually interesting because, KMB was down 15% just yesterday and now down another 2% on this news. So you can see here, I mean, we're talking multi-year lows. Potentially, could be, a dip buy, long-term investment opportunity. But look into this and see if it interests you, right? But what I wanted to share with you guys, look, so these are the brands for Kenvue, right? And you'll see Tylenol. Now, this has been a big discussion because the Trump administration recently came out and talked, against Tylenol and said if you're a pregnant mother taking this, it can link to autism for your child. So, they've been getting hit on this. But I mean, look at these big brands that Kenvue actually owns. If we're talking Listerine, Band-Aid, right? Neutrogena. I mean, these are household staples. And then if we go over to Kimberly-Clark, right, like I was saying, they primarily focus on paper products. And like as you can see here, I'm zooming in, right? I mean, they have like toilet paper, right? Baby diapers, Huggies, paper towels, adult diapers, tampons. So this is this company's, product line. And, they've been in business for a really long time. They have Kleenex, right? The tissues, pull-ups. And, this is a potential merger that could be happening. And it's something to keep your eye on because it's two staple companies that, do have these household products and, could be really interesting opportunity. But right now, like I was saying in the watch list yesterday, the stock's getting sold off because investors do not think it's a smart merger. And, the consumer's stretched and, people, they're not going out and maybe buying, name brand Huggies or Kleenex. They're going to go to Sam's Club or whatever, or Walmart and buy non-name brand paper towels, go to Sam's Club and get the cheaper diapers, right? So, right, we're seeing that deal happen. This is how the stock is reacting, okay? Take notice, right? And let's look at I want to see the dividend for this, if I can quickly. I don't want to take too much time, but I always have a problem with this. There it is. Look, the yield is at 5% on KMB right now. So that's a great dividend yield. But what you do have to look out for is the payout ratio, what you could do a quick Google, and essentially it means, how much of the company's earnings do they actually pay out, for their dividend. So theoretically, say if that payout ratio was 100%, that means, basically all of the company's earnings that they keep are, going out the door. So that's obviously not sustainable. So if you see high numbers like that, it can get a little scary because that means that the dividend could actually get cut, right? So, that's also why the stocks get sold off because you see this big deal, right? The yield's going up. They might not be able to sustain that dividend. Well, to be determined, guys. But like I tell you here, I'm the first to the news and I love sharing it with you guys. You can make big money moves. I am focusing on some other names, but we're going to let the dust settle on this and see how this goes. But keep it in mind, okay? Next thing I have for you, right? Big name we have in the long-term portfolio, Uber stock. They reported earnings this morning. Now, the earnings absolutely killed it, okay? But the stock did sell off. Like I've always tell you, Wall Street hates you. Welcome to the stock market, baby. Oh, market just closed. That was the ding, ding, ding. And we're going to have AMD earnings coming out. But let's get back into what I was saying. Right, Uber, okay. They had quarter 3 revenue was 13.47 billion versus an estimate of 13.27. So they killed it there, right? Their EPS came in at 3.11 versus 0.68 estimate. Okay, gross bookings killed the estimate, beat it. And then, the street one of the things that kind of sent the stock down was their guidance. You always have to look at an earnings report. What was the EPS and revenue compared to the estimates? What is the company's guidance and how did the conference call go? That is the three things that are going to move the stock. Now, Uber, right, their outlook for quarter four gross bookings was, look here, 52 to 53 billion. And, the estimate, right, was 52. So, you can kind of see that, they kind of set their bottom range towards here. So, I mean, it was a beautiful earnings, okay? I can't even believe they sent the stock down. Wall Street loves to scam you. And it was a great quarter, okay? But Wall Street sent it down because they wanted more and more and more. They wanted better guidance. So this actually led to us getting a killer trade this morning, okay? Every $74 turned into 205. I mean, we have been on absolute fire and we killed this trade up over 150%, okay? Now, if you look at the chart, right, this was what happened with Uber stock, okay? So if we go out 2-day chart, look, it was up over at $100 yesterday. And look, this was the initial earnings reaction, okay? And I looked at it this morning. I went, oh my God, like we just had this huge sell off down to $90. It was absolutely ridiculous. And what you saw here, right, was the CEO came out and actually said that autonomous, robo taxis might not be profitable for a couple years. And, Uber wants to expand into that market. So once those words came out of his mouth, well, it sent the stock flying down because, well, that means they'd be losing a little bit of money for a little bit with those robo-taxi rides. So that, was a big overreaction. And I was like, please, 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 open up at $90 because I want to buy this dip so bad and kill the market. Well, it did get a little pop, as you can see here, pre-market. But we got a beautiful opportunity because at the open, people sold it off. And I mean, we fucking killed it. We timed these options. I mean, absolutely fucking perfect. And, we have been doing this every single day. So what I ended up doing was getting the, where are they here? It's this November 7th, 94 call options, okay? So what we ended up doing here, right, was buying them at, where is it? Let me show you my trades, okay? So look, we bought it at 74 cents and sold it at 205, okay? So if you look at the chart this morning, right, look, 74 cents is all the way down here. So we got that awesome entry in the morning, and then we sold it right up here at 205, around here at 224, okay? And right, we had time on these contracts. I mean, we could have actually held them into the open tomorrow, right? Because, we had these till Friday. So if the stock opens up green tomorrow and keeps rebounding, because, I mean, it closed down still 5% today, we could have made even more of a killing. But I said, you know what? I'm not going to be greedy, right? We absolutely killed it on this trade. I'm taking my profit, okay? Because tomorrow, who knows what could happen. The stock could open up red and the premium would get crushed. So I took the profits. But look, I mean, even here, the premiums ended up closing. The last trade took place for 225. So we sold at 205, and we're going to see where this opens up tomorrow. But I mean, I love it, love it. Absolutely amazing trade. Look, the market gives you these opportunities. Uber killed it on their fucking earnings. The stock was sold off because Wall Street hates you. They try to scam you for your shares. And look at the rebound. I mean, it just goes to show you, like, dip buyers came in. The stock hit $90, closed at about 95. Huge intraday move you could have capitalized on. So there was that. And then I also have for you news on Novo Nordisk and Eli Lilly, right? This was an intraday headline. Now, yesterday, intraday was kind of boring, right? There wasn't much going on. So today we actually did get a headline you could have played, which was the pizza play. But at the same time, look at this chart, Novo and Lilly, okay? So huge move here, right, on the day, okay? And that was because the headline came out and said that Eli Lilly and Novo Nordisk near a White House deal on obesity drugs prices. So what's going to happen is Trump and them are probably going to team up and, sell these obesity drugs with this Trump RX platform, but have to negotiate, on set prices because Trump is, his big presidential thing is like, let's control healthcare prices. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens with this. But the market loved it because it's a deal with the Trump administration where, you know, these pharmaceutical companies are getting hit with big tariffs. So you already saw what happened with Pfizer. It made a crazy move after it negotiated a deal with the Trump administration. And now you're seeing Eli Lilly and Novo Nordisk come out and do it. So you had huge intraday moves that you could have played, right, with this news. Okay, made a quick trade on it. So that was the headline that came out of there. And then like I was showing you guys, right, pizza, another huge intraday move, right, from $52 all the way down to 38. So it made a killer trade opportunity. And then what I'm going to try to do for you guys right now is see if AMD ended up getting their earnings out, because they do have earnings today. Let's see. No, it might be coming out at 4:15. But guys, it's everything I have for you. So peace out.